Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to this special edition broadcast of Rise Up. You know what, guys? I'm going to play the morning show because it's morning somewhere.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, which jingle do we play? We have an evening and a morning one, but we never meet in the afternoon, only for select people.
Only for select people, and this is one such occasion. I am not going to belabor the point. I'm going to get right to it. We are thrilled to welcome back Commissioner Hester Peirce. If you don't know Hester Peirce, she is a commissioner in the Securities and Exchange Commission, okay? One of the most influential voices in financial innovation and digital assets today. Known widely as Crypto Mom, Commissioner Peirce has been a real champion, we think, of open dialogue, of clarity, of responsible innovation. She has served the public at the SEC since 2018, has contributed several key perspectives on securities law, on decentralization, market structure, and, I might say, has made some of the best contributions of literary references to dissenting opinions in history. I recommend you look them up. We're honored to have her back on Rise Up. Please join me in welcoming my friend and yours, Commissioner Hester Peirce. Welcome back to the Rise Up Morning Show. I gave you the wrong sound effect. I feel terrible. We're thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you for that great introduction. It's really nice to be back. I had a good time the last time we did this, though we were in person last time, so this will be a little new challenge, I guess. I do want to give you my disclaimer, which is that my views are my own views as a commissioner, not necessarily those of the SEC or my fellow commissioners.
Excellent. Thank you. And we're thrilled to be back. Wish we could be in person, but next time. The last time we spoke, just over a year ago, and crypto has lived like a decade in that time. We've had a new president. We've had the passage of the Genius Act. There's been a lot of real progress from the SEC's crypto task force. You've had a series of really important no action letters, many meetings with builders, industry leaders. But we've also watched scandals and token launches by world leaders. There are new risks. There are new opportunities to tell a better story. So today, that's where we want to start. We want you to help us understand what the last year has meant for policy and for markets and for consumers and what comes next. So, Hester, I'd like to start by asking what you think has changed most in the regulatory landscape since we last spoke in September.
Quick timeout. Quick timeout. We have an audio issue on TikTok. It doesn't seem like anyone can hear us over on TikTok.
How painful.
Sorry to just cut you out from under there. Now you're muted.
Yep.
It's delightful to know that we can't hear. The magic of Radioland will make it better. Let's get a sound check. 1 2 1 2. Test check. We'll say your ABCs.
Test check. ABC. TikTok check.
Alex, say your ABCs.
I don't know them, but if I did, I would be saying them right now.
Commissioner Peirce,
check. 1 2.
Give me more than these guys did. Say some ABCs for me, please.
ABC, DEF. That's all I know. So there we go.
Okay.
I should just say SEC.
SEC.
I mean, those are my favorite letters.
Can't hear Alex, can't hear Will. That's such a shame.
Say dumbest question, Evan. It's not the cable.
I mean, I don't think so. I have unplugged and replugged, and you guys are turned up. And
I do love that with an identical setup, we just ran a show like 2 or 3 hours ago.
Yeah, you know, if it's not regulation, if it's not safety, it's tech. You know. Hold tight.
Well.
Is something fixed? Someone can hear me now.
Fixed.
We got me now.
Got Alex. How about me? Do we have audio? Audio check.
There
got
it is.
Alex. There's Alex. Can someone lip read? Evan.
There they are.
I think we're doing just fine.
Okay.
We're good.
I think
Okay. Let me say to everyone in podcast land, we probably won't fix it in post. You are the real champions for surviving such a thing. Commissioner Peirce, the question really is just very simply like, what has changed the most since we talked last in 2024?
It's hard to pick a thing that's changed the most because really everything in crypto regulation has changed pretty dramatically in the US over the last year. And that wasn't a surprise to anyone who was watching what the different positions were. The president came in with a very clear plan to change the way crypto regulation was approached in the United States. We at the SEC started very early on that project. The acting chairman, Mark Ueda at the time, set up the crypto task force. And that's the group that I've been leading. And really the goal of that task force is to work with staff across the commission to try to get to a better place. And we really did make a change on a lot of approaches. First, we stopped using regulation by enforcement. And instead, we put a lot of emphasis on trying to use our regulatory tools, whether that's staff actions to provide guidance around what does and doesn't fit within the SEC's regulatory perimeter, or whether that's working on longer term rulemaking and commission level guidance and perhaps commission level exemptions as well. So that's what we've been working on. You did mention at the outset that we've been talking to a lot of people. A lot of that conversation has come through one-on-one meetings with people in the space, but also we've been doing a series of roundtables. We started out by doing a series of substance matter organized roundtables that were larger events. And then we've also gone out on the road and met with some smaller crypto projects in different cities across the country. And then we have a very active written input function where we're getting letters from lots of people. And so that work has been very helpful as we think about longer term regulation. And then, of course, and this is not necessarily a change because Congress has been working on crypto legislation for quite some time. Even before the election, they were working on that. But there's really a lot of momentum. Genius Act was passed. The Market Structure Act is being worked on as we speak. The House already has a version of it out there and voted on, and the Senate is working on their own. And so we also have been engaged with both House and Senate as they work on that legislation. So I feel like we're making a lot of progress. We also are working with our fellow regulators, including the CFTC. The President's Working Group on Digital Assets put out a report that covers a whole range of issues related to crypto policy. So I think that gives you a sense that there's a lot happening, and we're in a very different place than we were a year ago.
Yeah, and it couldn't feel like a lot more has passed. We say often how fast the year has gone, and it seems like so much has happened. Alex, I know you talk often about the Genius Act on the show and how vast it is and how not well we understand it, or even the implications of it as it changes in the future. I would love to kick it to you because I know it's something you want to talk about.
Yeah, actually, I specifically don't want to spend too much time with Genius just because, Commissioner, obviously, as you know, but just in case anyone listening does not know, Genius kind of specifically narrows the scope of, like, I don't know, jurisdictional or enforcement focus that both the SEC and the CFTC have as far as stablecoins go. And since that's a much more specific piece of legislation, I was actually a little bit more curious, just given how you have talked about short-term versus long-term. And I know that it was part of your roadmap this year to sort of, get in there, get a lay of the land, start with the roundtables, and then sort of set up to do more stuff in 2026 as far as getting actual pieces of legislation across that maybe touch bigger pieces of the industry, or more specifically as they relate to like what you guys specifically handle at the SEC. So I'm curious, what's on your radar as we turn into the next year, given that, Genius is much more, or the stuff we've gotten so far has been more like centralized exchange, kind of, larger, like ETF custodian focused. So I'm specifically interested in anything that kind of starts to touch more on the DeFi space as far as the industry is concerned as we get into next year.
Yeah, well, and there is a lot in that question. First, with respect to the Genius Act, I do think that was a key piece of legislation to get done, just in terms of having a framework around stablecoins, which then become so important in DeFi, and I think in crypto more generally. People are going to use stablecoins for a lot of different things, and so that was important to get that done. We do not have authority, as you mentioned, over stablecoins. That's more of a banking regulatory issue. But when you start to talk about yield generating assets, they become securities. And so we've long had tokenized money market funds. I expect there will be continued interest in those products, and those are something that people can already offer. And so we expect that will continue. In terms of longer term regulation at the SEC, we are, the question of when does a crypto asset qualify as a security is one that we all know has been talked about a lot over the years. And so we're working on providing some more clarity there. I think you got a preview of some of that in a recent speech by the chairman, where he laid out sort of a taxonomy for thinking about crypto assets. And we really do welcome feedback. I think that's always welcome throughout this whole process. So people, if they want to take a look at that speech, I would love to hear reactions to it. And then we're looking at the chairman has also mentioned an innovation exemption, which would allow experimentation with tokenized securities. A lot of the interest over the last year that we've been getting has been not about necessarily native crypto assets, because most of those, as we're finally now admitting, probably are not actually within the SEC's remit. But if you take a regular security and you tokenize it, whether that's natively on chain or through some other manner, that of course will be a security. And so we're working on an innovation exemption around how those would trade, and we're also looking at providing longer-term rulemaking, a longer-term rulemaking project that would allow us to work with people who do want to come in and register their securities offerings, their crypto asset offerings with us. And so those are some of the projects that we have going on. With respect to DeFi in general, I think that this is where there will be a lot of conversation. This is the source of a lot of conversation in discussions around the market structure bill that Congress is working on. And what I think is important in that discussion is to really underscore that when people engage in transactions that are peer-to-peer or peer-to-protocol, which is how a lot of these transactions happen, there is, in my mind, a very strong argument for saying that there's not that regulation does not reach those kinds of transactions, right? The role of regulation has really been around centralized intermediaries. And why is that? Because centralized intermediaries, while they can be helpful in mediating transactions, they can also do things like walk away with your money. They can have conflicts that they don't tell you about. They can be careless. They might not intend to walk away with your money, but they do something careless. And so really that has been where regulation has focused. And I don't think it's wise to try to say, well, just because we have this new technology, we want to extend regulation into transactions that would, in old times, not have had to go through a regulatory framework.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about the one thing you mentioned about the innovation exemption kind of idea. And I've seen you say before, let's take tokenization of an asset, for example, that the tokenization piece is a technological breakthrough, not necessarily a new asset class. Right. And I assume that has a lot to do with not wanting to see an asset given a token layer to it as one piece of it overall assetness, make it get punted from like regulatory enforcement agency to enforcement agency, depending on what the rule is, just because this new layer was added, even though the underlying asset, whether it be an apartment building, a bar of gold, or whatever else, does not change in any way, shape, or form. I guess, are those two things kind of related? Because that's where I get tied up trying to figure out, what does that mean, innovation? What kind of carve out could exist to allow innovation without just, opening up the doors to any of the stuff that you guys are more concerned with preventing: fraud, abuse, theft, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to remember is that we really, at the SEC, we're really focused on the things that are within our remit. So if you're taking something that's a security and you're tokenizing it, that certainly is within our remit. If you're taking an apartment building and you're chopping it up and selling pieces of that, that may also be within our, when you're fractionalizing assets that would not otherwise be within our jurisdiction. If you fractionalize and sell it, that may be within our remit also. And so we have to first look at that question. But when I talk about the innovation exemption, I'm really talking about a response to the efforts by people out there to take traditional securities, whether equity or debt securities, to tokenize those and to trade those. Really, it is an experiment. Let's see how these new blockchain rails work for these types of assets. And so the goal of an exemption, like an innovation exemption, is to allow people the opportunity to experiment with different approaches to tokenizing and to then work our way into a long-term regulatory framework that works for those kinds of assets. And so it is a temporary measure with the idea that people will be able to graduate into a more permanent regulatory regime. And it's just a recognition that some rules don't make sense in the same way because the technology is different. Maybe the transfer agent's role is different. There are questions around how the existing rule set applies or should apply. And so that's really what we're trying to work through with people.
Mm-hmm. And my question on that front too, it just kind of stems from, if we take tokenized stocks just as the example, obviously a stock is a security. But if you take it and you start trading it in this fully decentralized environment where there's no real issuer, right? It's a decentralized environment, it's code, it's, open source developers and stuff like that. Is the SEC and are you concerned at all about like the trading of securities in this decentralized manner, in this decentralized environment, where it's hard to put like and enforce rules and regulations? And just kind of like, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, certainly, there are some challenges there. And I would say if you have an equity security, there is an issuer. So the question is, who is the issuer of the security? And is the issuer of the security actually involved in the tokenization process? Because there are a lot of people trying different models of tokenization, some of which do not involve the issuer. And so then you may have another entity, and you need to understand what exactly are you buying when you're buying that security? And is there additional risk that's imposed because you've got another entity involved? But to your question about, so say an issuer, a company, decides to tokenize its securities, and those securities then are able to trade through DeFi, and they can change hands through DeFi. I think the questions that we need to answer there, how do those changes in ownership get recorded? Who's getting the dividends for that security? When there's something to vote on, who gets to vote? So there are some tricky questions there about how that transfer actually occurs, when it's recorded, how it's recorded, what is the official ownership record for something? What role does the transfer agent play versus the blockchain itself? And so these are some really interesting questions that lawyers have to think about. And then, of course, there are questions around AML, KYC. Who's going to be, can a token that represents a security transfer to someone who's not been subject to some AML, KYC process? If so, who is the one who enforces that? Do you code it into the smart code for the token so that it can only go to an address that has been through this process? So I think there are a lot of those kinds of questions that we're working through.
I'm curious if you mentioned, an issuer who exists, and regardless of what the thing is, there is an issuer. Mm-hmm. This might be a silly question. If you have someone who is already licensed to issue a security, they've gotten, approval for some offering, I don't know, whatever they do, and they were to add a different one. It's a separate like review and approval process for even a pre-licensed approved issuer to issue a new security. Is that correct? Or do they have like...
Well, I mean, when a company issues a security, it either has to issue it as a registered offering, either has to register the offering or it has to be subject to an exemption. And so then, I mean, the question becomes how relevant is it, in what form it is issued. And so I think that those are the kinds of questions that people are working through and thinking about is, does it matter even if some are on blockchain, some are tokenized and some are not? Right. Some are in paper certificates and some are not. So it's those kinds of things that we're working through.
Okay. Yeah, because the place I was walking to was if you had someone who was already approved to issue some sort of security, non-tokenized, their stock offering, for example, and they wanted to supplement that existing security with a now newly added token element, would they have to go back through the approval process to add a token element to an existing security, or does it get lumped into the first asset?
Well, I mean, I would recommend people come and talk to us because there are just questions about, I mean, there have been people who have companies that have already issued tokenized securities, whether those are money market funds or companies. There are companies that have already done that. But I do think it's helpful to come and talk to us if you're talking about having tokenized and non-tokenized securities trading alongside each other. How do those markets interact with one another? We have all kinds of rules that apply to so-called national market system securities, NMS securities, around how those can be traded. And so those are the kinds of things that I really recommend people come and talk to us about. But there is interest in experimenting with this. People are already doing it. And I think the goal at the end of the day for a lot of people is to have these things be interchangeable, the tokenized version and the non-tokenized version. But the mechanics of how that works really do matter.
I have a question about how people get in touch with you. I think there's some confusion in our audience. Eamon wanted to know, for example, who you take input and feedback from and how folks can contribute. And I think more broadly, maybe can you help us understand a little more the crypto task force and their role and like what the everyday people like me watching should do next if we want to help support and push this helpful regulation?
Yeah, so the crypto task force is a temporary task force put in place by the acting chairman in the early part of this year, and then reaffirmed by the current chairman Atkins. And the goal of the task force is really to work with people across the SEC to get us to a better place on regulation. So a lot of the work is being done by other staff across the SEC, but people on the task force are working on these issues all the time. And so we're helping to shepherd that process. In terms of getting involved, we have, if you go to the SEC's website, sec.gov, you'll see a button that you can click for the crypto task force. And if you click on that, you'll see different ways of interacting with us, whether that is through providing written input. I put out in February a very long list of questions. So you're welcome to answer any or all of those questions or answer questions that I didn't ask that you think I should have asked. And then if you want to meet with the crypto task force, you can put in a meeting request. We of course want to know what you want to come in and talk to us about. And we want you to be as prepared for that conversation as possible to make it worthwhile. And then you can see all of the meetings that we've had. You can see all of the written input that we've gotten, so you can respond to information that you see on there. Now, if you're a crypto project, or if you're someone who's trying to work on tokenization or trying to work on some aspect of this, what you should do is you should reach out to us and come talk to us after having thought through where you might need exemptive relief. And so that probably will involve your speaking with a lawyer and trying to understand where you might need relief. And then we're happy to have those conversations with you. We might end up inviting to that meeting people from the subject areas at the SEC who might also want to hear from you at that meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
And then I should also note that when I travel to different cities, I usually post that I'm going to be traveling, and if people want to meet with me, I'm happy to meet with people as well. I'm happy to do it as, if you have a particular issue you want to talk about, or if you have a local group that you'd like me to meet with, I'm always happy to do that. So please let me know when you see those postings.
And in fact, I can attest, we reached out to you that way after you posted on
Right.
Twitter saying, I'm going to be in Nashville, and we assembled the team. We sent the message, and everybody was delightful to work with. You must be so busy, but you're really excellent at responding. And I wanted to shout out Ileana and the other folks who support you on your team, because it was like so proactive. They
I
reached
have
out
some
to
great
me.
people working. I have some great people working with me. So yes, I don't get any credit for that, except that I had a hand in selecting some of these people to be part of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, speaking of the work, what's some of the work that the public should expect next? The things you're most maybe excited about seeing that are on the way, or if excited is the wrong way to phrase it, just that you're looking forward to and we can look forward to as people start to play around.
Yeah, I mean, I am excited about some of the things that we've already put out in terms of guidance, and there have been some great DPIN no action letters that have come out recently. I'm also excited about what's coming forward in terms of providing more clarity around the taxonomy of tokens, so that people can really grapple in a more logical way with this question of when is a token part of an investment contract, and how can we know when it's broken out of that investment contract and is now trading freely on its own. So I think that's one piece that I'm really excited to see people's feedback on. I am excited about the innovation exemption. I think it'll be an opportunity for people to try some new things. It will be, at the end of the day, up to the market whether or not tokenization of everything happens, as some people anticipate. But there are benefits that come with tokenization, and I'm really looking forward to seeing people have that chance to try for commercial viability in this area, in a way that's not just a flash in the pan experiment, but it's something that can then, through a regulatory framework that we put in place, can last, and people can really see whether there are lasting benefits of tokenizing, which obviously I think there's some promise there, but it will be up to the market to decide.
I'm curious about just back to the innovation exemption for 1 second. There was a great line from one of the publications coming out of the task force, one of the panels, I don't remember which one, that talks specifically about, I think it was from you, specifically about the idea of making sure that centralized entity, we're speaking specifically about the idea of a decentralized protocol where we don't necessarily want to be policing code and what someone else does with someone else's code, which is obviously a huge topic. And I think it was you that made the comment about making sure that like a centralized entity is not hiding behind the label of DeFi to skirt any kind of rules that may apply to allow for the decentralization or the expansion of decentralized financial protocols. How could that be determined? Is there like a desire to build like a framework for defining decentralization, or like a list of criteria that an entity or an organization would have to meet in order to qualify for that, or like a smell test that you guys at the commission would have in order to try to determine whether or not someone was, I guess, lying about that or misrepresenting the way that their protocol worked or anything like that?
Well, you really have to look at the definitions in the securities laws and then see whether something satisfies those definitions. People may not all agree on how that works, but I think we should start from the premise that there's no right or wrong. If you want to be centralized, that's fine.
Sure.
We have regulations for that, and so go do it. If you truly want to build something that's decentralized, if you want to just put up some code and put it out there and people can use it, then my argument would be there isn't anyone at that point. If it's open source code, it's out there, anyone can use it. There is no one to register at that point. So I think it's kind of it's a practical question. Is there actually someone who is controlling every aspect of this, or is there Is there someone who can turn the key on so that all of the money in the treasury of this protocol goes to that one person? I mean, that looks kind of centralized to me. So I think it's really the question of, are we actually eliminating the person that you have to trust in order for this to work? If there is someone who you're trusting to make this work, it's not decentralized. And so I think this is a conversation that people can bring very different perspectives to. A lot of people in the regulatory world look at things and they say there can be no such thing as decentralization. There will always be someone who's in control. I come out very much on the opposite end of that. I think that if you're just writing software code, you're putting it out there, people are using it, or you're giving people access to that code, but you're not custodying their assets, I would argue that looks a lot less centralized than something where you're custodying assets or you're controlling that code and you're the only one who can update it and it's not open source. So I think those are some of the factors that I'm looking at. But again, this is an area where I would love input. I would love to see how other people think about it, because they're important conversations for us to have.
I think
we have to get this right.
I think in that sense, it's important, I think, to draw a clear distinction and I guess make it between, the protocol upon which things can be built, like without getting too specific. If we took something like Ethereum, for example, recognizing that it in and of itself is a protocol that someone could build something centralized on top of, and would then in theory be subject to, a different jurisdiction perhaps than, I don't know, than the foundation that governs Ethereum or that kind of a thing, recognizing those two things as separate, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And I don't know what the world will look like. And I try to say that as often as possible because I'm just one person and I'm a regulator. But I can see a world in which you have a lot of things built on public blockchains, right? The public blockchains are decentralized blockchains. They're not run by anyone. But then you have people building things on top of those and using that infrastructure to build things that are centralized. And those centralized entities then can be subject to regulation in the same way that other centralized entities would.
Mm-hmm. I have a question around ETFs and just kind of like a culture shift with, Gary Gensler's leadership gone and now Paul Atkins in, and then the release of pretty much the SEC guidelines saying like, hey, if you meet these ETF qualifications, like you're essentially good to go. You don't need to talk to us as much as you did in the past. It kind of feels like to me, and this is where my question is going, that the culture is kind of around now like, hey, as long as you meet these guidelines, get the ETF out there and let the market decide if that altcoin ETF is a product that deserves to exist or not. We want to remove ourselves from this process as much as possible and kind of let the free market decide. Is that kind of the thought process so long as those initial guidelines are met with ETFs, or is it a little bit more so something else?
No, I think that is a good way of explaining it. It really is up to the market to decide. I don't know if everyone's conception of a new product is going to work, but we see that in the traditional markets too. People try products to see whether the market likes them. Sometimes the market does, sometimes it doesn't.
So long as like Alex, what's the coin, the crazy meme coin you always give these as the
Harry
crazy
Potter,
example?
Sonic, Obama, Inu?
That's if that ETF meets the guidelines, then by golly, I guess your ETF could get approved, and then let the market decide if anyone thinks it's worth the damn.
So yeah, I mean, a couple things. One is, there are disclosure obligations, right? So you've got to meet those disclosure obligations. And then second, I would say, you can go through the generic listing standards. We put those out because we, as you all know, we're getting inundated with applications for new products, and so having generic standards seem to be the way to go. If you have a product that doesn't meet those generic standards, you can still come in through the normal process. It's just not going to be as fast. And again, I caution people. I think this is a really good moment to say, when you buy a product in the United States, whether it's a share of a company or or you buy an ETF or an ETP, the assumption should not be, oh, the SEC has decided this is a good investment and they've signed off on it. That is not actually at all the case. All we have done is we've worked through our normal process, which is really around disclosure, and then we have these generic standards that some of these products have met, but there's no seal of approval from the SEC. This is not us telling you it's good for anyone, let alone good for you. You've got to make those decisions for yourself. If you can't make them for yourself, go find someone professional to help you with those decisions. It is a real misconception that a lot of people have, whether it's about crypto or other products, that the SEC, plays some sort of merit regulation role. We do not.
I've seen that theme come up time and time again, primarily in your dissents as we look back into the previous administration, which again,
I'm a bit of a broken record, but I think it's so important because I'm a huge believer in individual, in the dignity of each individual person, right? But part of that dignity means that you make decisions for yourself and your family, and when things go wrong, you don't go running to someone to say, why didn't you stop me from making that decision?
Yeah. Would it be fair to say at that point, though, that the SEC's role in that equation would be more along the lines of making sure that the thing being represented to people to make a choice about is being represented properly?
Yes.
That we have enough of an educational framework to make a decision on, because uninformed choice is obviously not really a fair thing.
Well, I mean, education is something that we could do a lot better job on in this country. People need to really be thinking about financial products and services much younger. And I think one of the advantages of all of the interest in crypto and all of the renewed retail interest in retail equity trading is that people are finding that they need to get more educated. And so maybe that will kick off a real change in this country so that we start educating people in elementary school to think about these questions.
Hester, I didn't explain this to you, but every time you hear that sound, you're going to get a point. You've been saying such lovely things, and I don't want you to think I'm telling you your time is up, shut up. I just, people in the audience are expecting me to say once in a while when you say something like that. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Although I probably should also stop talking.
No, you're the show.
You're on a talk show.
Oh,
that's what we do here. Alex, I ran right over you. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make a quip about, starting off education about this stuff earlier. 100%. I could not agree more. Mm-hmm. I do think that education needs to extend to the Hill just a little bit, because I've heard some real, unfortunately, out of touch things coming from the people at the top of the pile in charge of writing the legislation. And so I'm encouraged to hear, first of all, you say phrases like peer-to-peer versus peer-to-protocol. We commented on this the last time you were with us. It's very refreshing to hear like a recognition of the nuance with all of this stuff, because there is so much depth to it. And I am a broken record for saying that the death of nuance is an epidemic, especially as it touches crypto and Web3 and all of this stuff, because there's so much here. I think
that's a really good point. And I have to say that earlier today I was having a discussion with some other people, and I said it's a real shame that we can't actually see how this technology works at ourselves, because I really need to understand what this looks like and how it works for me to figure out how to write a good regulation for it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So I would like to see I'd like to see there be some way where we did let people do more experimentation who are trying to write the regs.
Yeah, and I'm curious how we can help to that end. You mentioned a lot of the things that you're
creating
excited.
a POAP for the entire SEC, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get right on that. I mean,
people coming in and doing demos for us is probably a good thing. So that is something that, why don't I just put an invitation out there for people to come show me how things work, even if I can't press the buttons myself.
Okay, great. We will regularly have you on anytime and just do lots of
Absolutely.
little crypto silly experiences that you can try for yourself. We're running into them all the time. Our goal is to help people, elevate regarding the education piece, the literacy piece. It's so important. People are searching for it everywhere, and we want them to be able to bump.
Well, the robots got him.
He'll be back with us.
That's what happens when we start talking about education.
I know, they start just ripping the infrastructure out.
That is the sound of several tiny kittens chewing on Evan's Ethernet cable.
Except quite literally, it could have
literally,
exactly been that.
No, for sure.
I can't believe it. Am I back with you?
You're
You
back.
are.
I
Yeah.
absolutely can't believe it. This is. I have to tell you, they're digging a fiber optic line outside of my house, so I'll have amazing internet, presumably in a week. But apparently, the trade-off is the internet now. I'm so sorry. The question is, as we think about, I think God is trying to tell me, Evan, be more concise with your questions. As we think about education.
Did TikTok get interrupted because you're paused over there? So I think that means sound is paused as well.
Oh yeah, live is paused, and here we are.
Welcome back. We're live with Commissioner Hester Peirce, and
We'll do it live.
the question is, as you think about the conversations we should be having, or that you would like to see people having, what are the kinds of topics that you think aren't getting enough attention publicly? And if there are any of them you would like to see us talk about, I'd be all ears.
Well, I am happy to say that there's been more discussion around issues of privacy, and I think those are important, right? We all have been very excited about blockchains because there is this wonderful transparency, and that does certainly address some of the issues that we've seen in the past from lack of transparency. But at the same time, as people start to think about integrating crypto into their everyday lives, their financial transactions, and other parts of their lives, it becomes more evident that you don't probably want the whole world to know everything that you're doing all of the time. And so I think really embracing this idea that privacy matters, there should be a presumption that people have a right to privacy in their transactions. And if there are instances when that privacy needs to be overcome because there's suspicion that criminal activity has gone on, of course we understand that there's going to be interest of law enforcement in looking into that, but we have to build protections into place. In fact, we have to figure out how to make sure that the constitutional protections that are there are applying in this area, that they're not being overrun. I think there is a great temptation for regulators and government to say, well, the beauty of the technology is that we can see what everyone is doing all of the time. And so it's important for regular Americans to speak up and say, no, this is really important to me to be able to use privacy protecting tools. It's not because I want to engage in criminal activity. It is because I want to go about my daily life and be protected. And we see that the need more and more as we've seen a lot of bad incidents happen where people have been attacked. And so there are reasons why, and their money's been stolen, right? There are reasons why people want to protect themselves. And so that's the conversation that I think we really need to be having. I do also think the conversation around DeFi is important, because it really is just a recognition that transactions that if you were paying people in cash, you could do without having to go through a whole regulatory framework. The same principles should apply when you're talking about doing decentralized peer-to-peer transactions.
Thank you.
Well said.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, but it's okay.
We're back.
It's a well-received point. We have a lot of folks in the audience who are thanking you, who appreciate your service and are excited. If you're looking for ways to get involved because you're listening live, I recommend you go to the SEC.gov website, because it does really have all the resources Commissioner Peirce says. And you can follow her on Twitter at Hester Peirce, the website now called X. But
And be careful, because there's some fake SEC Hester Peirce profiles, so just be careful.
Do you have those too? Because one of the most prevalent things that we see right now, since we have you here, that I don't know that you could really regulate in a direction for this, but that you should know about is there are so many pig butchering scams.
Yes.
And they are so successful. And one in particular targets folks who are curious about crypto. We're seeing it all the time right now on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere, with a your wallet isn't safe scam, your exchange isn't safe, to lure you to their bad website. And the kind of thing they're saying is you need to back it up to Web3. And so we have to do a lot of education to explain that, crypto, Web3 is a marketing term. Crypto is already on Web3 the way a website is on the internet. And, people hear that and they go, okay, great, makes sense. But now it's too late. This guy's got your money. You've put, like the gap of literacy. It's not that they're stupid people, and it's not that they don't care about autonomy or privacy. Or they just, people just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just say something there because I was able to talk to a lot of people during the shutdown because I was one of the few people who was working, and there were a lot of people who had been victimized in the name of crypto. Some of those people had been victimized once, and then someone somehow found them and said, hey, if you need help getting your money back, here's, we'll help you get it back. And then they would just steal even more of their money.
Yes.
Some of them do it in the name of government agencies, or even in people called me up to say, hey, I've been communicating with you on Telegram, Hester. You said you'd help me get, and I was like, no, that is definitely not me you've been communicating with. I don't ever believe it if someone is reaching out to you in that form or fashion. And so, you really have to be careful. It just, as you said, even very smart people can get taken advantage of this. If you have any kind of suspicion, I would say you should heed those suspicions. You can always wait. You can always do research. If they're pushing you to do something immediately, which often they do, because they know if they let you get off the phone, or they let you get off, usually they're chatting with you or something, they know that you'll go do some research and figure out it's not real. So take the time to walk away, to think about it, to make sure that you're doing something that's right. There are so many bad actors out there, and they are very clever. They're very good social engineers. They'll figure out a way to befriend you, and they'll figure out a way to steal money from you. And crypto is the way a lot of this, in the name of crypto, or they're asking you to buy crypto. They often show you account statements that are totally fake to lure you then to put more money in. And then when you try to take it out, somehow, lo and behold, you still have to put more money in to get it out. Those are all red flags. You can always call us at the SEC if you have questions. If something purports to be coming from the SEC and you say, oh, this seems a little strange, you should call us and make sure it really is from us.
Thank you very much.
Is it a possibility to, I mean, even if this was something to be collaborated on, this would be super cool, to get like a scheduled PSA from like the regulatory agencies themselves that is specifically written to address these concerns? I mean, we've been talking about them for months, and yet I still get DMs nearly every day. Evan and Will, I know, get them as well, that just say, I've lost this much money. I can see it sitting on this dashboard. What do I do? And to be the one who has to constantly say, like, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, like, it's gone forever. That dashboard is nonsense. It would be really cool to do some sort of like public awareness campaign with the SEC, with the CFTC, with honestly anybody that just puts out on like full blast like awareness of this particular kind of scam, because it's basically the same script every day. I mean, any amount of disruption we can throw into that would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good idea, and we have tried to use tools where we can reach people. But I think we need to try to do a better job of that and be creative. So yeah, I hear you. It's heartbreaking, because
it really is.
People really, I'm always amazed at how many good things humans can do, but I'm also amazed at the effort that people put into doing really bad things and to really hurting other people, with absolutely no compunction. It's, if those same people took their talents and they put them to use doing something good, they could build amazing things, but instead they just try to tear people's lives apart. And it's something we all have to figure out how to combat.
Well, and a lot of them are victims themselves. I listen regularly to different advocacy organizations who research this, journalists who talk about the crime, the organized crime of pig butchering. I heard a really riveting testimonial of a man who was trafficked into slavery, working 20 hours a day, sometimes at the point of torture, to message you, listener, and try and scam you out of money because his life depended on it. They deserve our sympathy. And it's something we can all talk more about. Gentlemen, it's about that time that we have to bid goodbye to the commissioner as she rides her dog and pony into the sunset. But before we do, if you've got a final question, a suggestion, a good joke, a word of wisdom, something like that, leave it below. We have lots of comments expressing gratitude to you for making time. Our friend Tori said, I love how real life these conversations get. I think she was talking about the technical difficulties. Alex, Will, is there anything you'd like to ask the commissioner before we bid her adieu?
The one that I'd like to talk about too is a conversation that I feel like has only just kind of started between crypto companies trying to issue ETF products, or not crypto companies, but like anybody, any issuer an ETF, and that's the possibility of NFT ETFs. And I was just curious to get your thoughts on NFT ETFs, because like obvious potential issues here are NFT markets are not very liquid, right? To me, that has always personally been a reason to kind of say no to them in their current state. But do you see a future where NFTs can be a product brought to market through an ETF? What if some of those conversations like? What are your current thoughts and opinions on that?
Well, I have to say that I haven't seen that much interest in doing that yet. So, we can talk about it. An NFT by definition is non-fungible tokens, which means that you can't take one token and just exchange it for another. There's a difference. And so that, I think, makes the conversation a lot harder. Now, obviously, you can take a bunch of things and package them together into a fund, and you can sell shares of that fund. But then there are a lot of issues around, you'd have to think around valuation and things like that. So I think that's a much harder conversation.
Yeah, if it was something like the Mona Lisa was tokenized, and I don't know, maybe the physical one was destroyed, people found the token to be valuable, you could put something like that, or something like shares of I could see non-fungible tokens playing a part. I don't know that we have a lot of good models for it, because I wouldn't want to do it.
It's a good excuse to get you back at some point, Commissioner, because I know obviously time is short, but I had more questions written down just about like the fragmentation of liquidity and the ability to move it effortlessly between different networks and stuff. I've also seen task force debate back and forth. I know Commissioner Crenshaw had some stuff about that as well in one of the pieces I was reading about her recently. So it's a huge topic too. I'm sure that's obviously front of mind. I know it's come up a few times.
Yeah, there's no dearth of interesting issues, and I love it when people like Commissioner Crenshaw raise these questions, because I think we do need to think about these kinds of issues, and so that's why I welcome criticism, commentary, thoughts, constructive suggestions from all of your listeners as well.
Dearth mentioned, and that is why we appreciate
Great
you.
word. It's a good word.
Before you go, because it's your time, do you have a final thought or last ask of our audience, Commissioner?
No, I mean, I just want to thank you for another fun conversation. You all are very thought provoking, and I hope that your listeners will engage with us, and I hope that we'll have some more good things we can talk about next year.
I hope so too. Can we just very quickly take a screenshot like selfie, since we can't take another picture like we did in person? Okay, hang on. Here we go. And on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, Commissioner Peirce. Have a good meeting. Have a good week. And we really look forward to catching up with you again next
Thanks
time.
so much. Take care.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Wow. She's my friend, and she's yours, Commissioner Hester Peirce. What do you think about it, guys? What a great
I don't
conversation.
know. I think it's going to be nice that I'm the most dressed down in this picture.
I know. I thought
You guys
with
don't just
buttons
look
on
like
it,
my
so you didn't
interns.
roast me and you showed up looking like me.
I thought about it, but I had too much Christmas preparation to do. All this decorating.
I was literally walking up the stairs wearing a t-shirt, and I had the thought like, no, Will's gonna bully me. So I went back downstairs and found something else.
bully me.
Yeah, dude. I took my hair down. I put on a neck scarf. Someone said in the comments, Alex's beard is on point. Yeah, That was our once upon a time. It was Will, Commissioner Peirce, intern 1, intern 2.
Featuring Christina's crocheted handiwork.
Yep. Oh, it's so good. So good. And it's right there, right behind your left shoulder, Evan.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Same one.
Oh.
Yeah. And I see the comment here from Light Love on TikTok. I was like, oh, wow, a woman teaching men. It happens all the time on the show.
Constant.
Happens all the time on the show.
In fact, I'm starting an entirely new show on Wednesday wherein 3 women, all smarter than me, just teach me stuff for an entire broadcast every other week.
Dude, women teaching men could be the name of an epic like Rise Up special episode, like a greatest hits episode where we just clip together us saying absolutely nothing or not even being on screen.
No, except it'd be really funny because a lot of people would tune in thinking it's going to be about something totally different, like something like about like life or like whatever, and then it's like, so DeFi liquidity pools, right?
Oh man.
Well, no, Hester Peirce is great. She's awesome. I wish she were president.
Will, I know that you've got a whole nother show to host tonight and you've got Christmas stuff to prepare for, so I really will be diligent about wrapping this down. But I would love to get your thoughts. Do you have lingering questions, inspirations? That was a really good question about NFTs because, you know, what they do now compared to what they can do and will do, who knows? We might very well have NFT
because
ETFs.
You get into nuanced conversations wherein liquidity really might not matter at all for an NFT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depending on what it is.
In particular, like everything it's all wrapped up with, what it is, you know.
Yeah, situationally. Like I really truly value the tokens that I have that mark all sorts of things, and I know there's not a snowball's chance in hell I could ever sell them into any market, and the only reason I care about them is because that token is irrefutable proof that I did that thing.
Yeah, and then one thing I also found interesting, because it was just something I hadn't thought of. Like a lot of the times you do a lot of research, you hear something, you go, oh, that's the way it is. And then you go off to the next thing because you're busy. You have a whole bunch of other things to do items. You don't, maybe you're good enough to the point where you asked your first initial question and then a second follow-up question, which most people don't, whatever that is. You don't get to that third or fourth. But it was in the beginning when she was talking about how like, hey, even if somebody goes out and buys the stock and then tokenize that, or buys the bond and then tokenizes that, like there's an issuer. You know, for the bond, it's the government. Although technically it could be a company, but if we're talking treasuries, then it's the government. If it's the stock, the company issued out the stock, somebody bought the stock and then decentralized it. And she's like, yeah, I mean, like it gets kind of like funky. Like there is risk here because there's a third party that's included that actually holds the stock, kind of, or they tokenized it and they offered it, you know, who exactly gets the vote in the company. And then, you know, there was just some question marks thrown up around some things that we view as like leaders in the space. Like, I mean, I was just thinking of Ondo. Ondo goes out and buys treasuries and tokenizes it themselves, but the issuer is the US government. So it's like, you know, if somebody goes out and buys a whole bunch of stocks and tokenizes them and issues them, like, is it cool to do that? Maybe, maybe not. Like Hester Peirce made it definitely seem like, hey, interesting conversation to have. But it wasn't like, hey, that's totally fine. It was, hey, there's a conversation to be had. So it's like, okay, there's a lot of regulatory question marks I just then had in my head of like anything like an Ondo or an Ondo competitor.
Well,
right?
The thing that makes me worry is that they're the ones we know about because they have the money and they've done it. It makes me worry that Coinbase and Kraken and Ondo and anybody who's able to raise $100 million or whatever can go out and do pretty much anything they want to until, not that I, you know, think that's necessarily going to happen, but I think there's a lot more power and it can move quicker. And there is real concern that corporations and centralized entities are going to move first because they have more ability to do that. And then there won't be regulations in place. And by the time regulations get there, they'll all be influenced in one direction, maybe that is somehow against our interests. That's something that concerns me a little bit.
Yeah. Hence my first big question just being about, you know, what touches the rest of the industry that's coming down the pipeline next year or the year after or whatever, and what's on the roadmap, you know, just because we've all heard the war cry that is regulation is coming. And so far what we have seen largely is, like you said, it's the stuff that touches the huge centralized entities, the Coinbases, the other big centralized exchanges, or the ETF custodians specifically. And Will, to your point, obviously it should be a concern. It's very valid to say that, you know, someone may have the approval, the licensing, the proper, you know, channels and whatevers to issue something. And if someone else, just comes along and creates a token equivalent of the same thing and undercuts the market by selling them that themselves, then obviously that's a problem, because then you have money that might be on behalf of the investor, the consumer, the retail individual. They think it's going one place, it's really going somewhere totally different with someone who just has good branding, which is a huge problem, which is exactly where the SEC should exist, to protect people from stuff like that, because that's a real genuine concern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really like the regulation, the regulation by enforcement approach, but we really do need better, clearer, proactive, sandboxy guidelines. I don't know. It's tough. I really...
Also...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to comment on something slightly different, but Alex will comment on something that is direct.
It's fine. I agree, is basically what I was going to say.
Oh, cool. Anyway. Anywho.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I did like how...
I forgot, so it doesn't matter.
Like, one of the questions I had, she basically addressed, which was, like, how close are we to getting an actual legal framework for what kinds of cryptocurrencies are securities and what are actually commodities?
Another good question.
Something that I didn't realize was that, what did she say exactly? But it was Paul Atkins, head of the SEC, had put out the, his general thoughts or opinions. What was it exactly?
Yeah, general guidelines.
Oh, yeah, it was general guidelines on, what the SEC thinks would be considered a security versus a commodity. I would imagine in response to the U.S. government looking at potentially taking, crypto away from the SEC and giving it to the CFTC. But, I was not aware that had already happened. So it seems like we're pretty close to actually getting hey, here is actually what is a security in the cryptocurrency space insofar as the SEC is concerned, and anything outside of that bubble goes to the CFTC, I suppose.
And I think that's part of clarity, sort of. But I think too, the whole thing needs to be cut down a lot more specific. Like we said, one of the biggest problems that faces the United States specifically with regards to how we legislate over stuff or how we regulate shit is by the recognition on one hand that this stuff moves way too slowly and we need to get something out there so that we can at least offer some sort of protection about XYZ, whatever. In that sense, knowing how slow the vehicle moves, you try to cram as much shit as humanly possible into everything, which just muddies waters and causes more problems, which is exactly why we're here. It's not like we don't have regulation. It's just a mess of gobbledygook that means nothing. And, in that sense, I don't know. I would rather see smaller, more pointed, give me something that just fixes the tax problem. Give me something that fixes, that updates the definition of the Howey test. They don't have to be this huge. We could pass 45 things. Congress used to do that. They don't do it anymore. Now we pass one big thing. It's 10,000 pages and no one has any clue what's in any of it.
It is troubling. I don't know if this is the exact document that has it most concisely, but there is a really good speech that Paul Atkins made at the Fed November 12th. And I will link it in the community. I'm talking about community.rumshq.com. If you're not there, get there. Free to join. Easy to connect with us. The SEC's approach to digital assets inside Project Crypto is the name of the speech. And you can find it on the SEC's website, sec.gov. And yes, I am saying SEC, not SCC. They have so much good stuff here, like how you can submit a tip or complaint if you suspect somebody is committing securities violations. 1-800-GARY Gensler, and
no, he's on a beach.
This is so much more. He is on a beach, probably. I hope he is. Hope a coconut falls on his head. I'm just kidding, Gary.
A little one.
It was just funny. Just a little one.
A small one.
Just enough to ruin your day, but not actually.
Damn, man! On the same exact stream, we have an SEC commissioner. You hope a coconut falls on his head.
Just like a
wish
bird poops in his cocktail.
The fate of Milton from Office Space when they get his drink wrong at the very end, and it really torches his day.
I hope they get your drink wrong, man. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Anyway.
Final thoughts, guys, on a good interview? Will?
I mean, it'd be dope if we could actually work with the SEC to help to spread a message of anti-scam information and education. That would be cool. It'd be awesome if we could bring that thread of topic up again with her team to be hey, we're really serious about actually trying to help on this front.
I was very serious about that.
What can we do?
Yeah, I
You're
love the
prepared to
idea
save
of just hanging out with Hester and showing her, like, here's how Peanut works. Here's Jito staking. Now watch what I can do with this. You know what I mean? Let's create a
for
membership
sure.
with Unlock Protocol.
Yeah. Can we have like a Rise Up SEC crossover or something where we just like help to message? Hell, we'll be in DC. We will shoot all of it and we'll give you the commercial.
Give me a broom closet and a clipboard, and I'm there.
Okay, maybe something a little bit more exciting than that for the commercial. But
A broom
you know,
closet and a clipboard.
broom
I'm saying
closet
that's
and a
all I need.
clipboard.
I'll get to work.
And that's how they changed the world.
You know, and this is, you know, Alex's upbringing of I just imagine being in a box with a potato really comes to shine. It really comes to light at times.
He
It wasn't
does
about,
well.
I don't know. I feel like I imagine this, but I felt like you had the potato in like a small, tight quarters. I don't know. Maybe
It
it's
was just sort of
maybe
with
it's
me
just-
all the time. I carried it around and I gnawed on it, and when it got gross, they would take it away and give me a fresh one.
Small, tight quarters. Some might have called it a cage.
I might call it a cage, or you know,
There
maybe
was
it's just because
also-
like I imagine you're a salty sailor man, even though I know it's not exactly the
No, I
case
was-
given the aviation mechanics, but still Coast Guard. You know, and I just imagine you in like a ship galley.
I mean, yeah, but I took that helicopter and hovered it right over the ocean so that the sea spray could get into it. So it was
It's even
still
more salty. It's even more salty.
Very salty.
Final thoughts, guys. Last minute jokes.
No,
Pitches
I'm gonna
for
go out on the
products.
potato in a cage thing.
Sounds good. Will,
Yeah.
you gonna be back tonight?
I'll be back tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll talk about market structure. We'll talk about all the micro strategy stuff as well. I've made a bunch of videos on it, so you can get up to date there. You can go on Twitter, and I have more information there as well, or tune in tonight. We'll go over all of it, and then take a look at Bitcoin and all this other kind of stuff. And also my squiggly line that I drew like a week ago is looking pretty nice right now. So hopefully the squiggle of truth continues, because that squiggle line rebounds from where we are currently right now to like $98,000. So for Bitcoin, because that'd be great.
Gonna need a hashtag, the squiggle of truth.
Yeah, except then it, you know, makes new lower lows to like $65,000. But hey, between now and then, it's great.
Between now and then, it's great, and when it happens, we will tell you about it. We're also coming back for several more morning shows, an after dark show, and you can, of course, find us in community.rumshq.com. The only thing missing is you, my friends. Thank you for being the very best part of what we do. Catch this recording on all your favorite socials. Get the links there. Until we see you next time, everybody, stay safe, be well, my friends. Rise up.